The notification sound from my phone pierced the silence of our bedroom at 11:47 p.m. Nathan's breathing remained steady beside me, his back turned toward the wall like always. I glanced at his still form, then quietly reached for my phone on the nightstand. "Working late again tomorrow? Maybe we could grab coffee after. Just the two of us. Callum." A flutter of excitement rushed through my chest as I read the message. Callum Pike had been flirting with me for weeks at the office, and honestly, it felt incredible to have someone notice me again. When was the last time Nathan had even looked at me properly? Really looked at me, not just glanced up from his laptop with that distant expression he always wore. I typed back quickly. "Sounds perfect. I could use some adult conversation for once." Nathan shifted slightly and I froze, my heart hammering, but he just pulled the blanket higher and continued his rhythmic breathing. Always so predictable. Always so there, but not really there. The next morning, I found Nathan in the kitchen, already dressed for work in his usual khakis and button-down shirt. He was methodically eating cereal while scrolling through his phone, probably checking his project management software before 7 a.m. like he did every single day. "Morning," I said, pouring myself coffee from the pot he'd made. At least he still did that much. "Morning," he replied without looking up. "Joni's lunch is packed. She has soccer practice after school, so I'll pick her up around 6. "I might be late tonight," I said casually, testing the waters. "Big project deadline coming up." Nathan nodded absently. "Okay. I'll handle dinner." That was it. No questions about what project, no interest in my work, no acknowledgement that I'd been staying late more and more often. Just acceptance, like everything else in our marriage had become. 7-year-old Joni bounced into the kitchen, her dark hair in the messy ponytail I'd thrown together the night before. She immediately went to Nathan, wrapping her arms around his waist. "Daddy, can we play Monopoly tonight?" Nathan's face softened in a way it never did when he looked at me anymore. "Sure, sweetheart. After homework." "What about Mommy?" Joni asked, glancing at me hopefully. "Mommy has to work late again," Nathan said before I could answer. There was no accusation in his tone, just fact. Somehow that made it worse. I felt a stab of guilt but pushed it away. It wasn't my fault that Nathan had become so boring, so predictable. We used to talk for hours when we first met. We used to laugh together. Now our conversations consisted of logistics about Joni's schedule and who would handle which household task. After they left, I sat alone in our kitchen, staring at the empty cereal bowl Nathan had left in the sink. Not even in the dishwasher, just the sink, like he expected me to handle it. Like he expected me to handle everything emotional in this house, while he managed the practical stuff. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Callum. "Can't wait to see you today. You looked amazing yesterday in that blue dress." I smiled for the first time that morning. When was the last time Nathan had complimented how I looked? I couldn't even remember. At work, the day dragged until most people had left the office. Callum appeared at my cubicle around 6:30, his sandy hair slightly mussed and his tie loosened. He was attractive in an effortless way that Nathan had never been. Confident, charming, the type of man who made you feel special just by paying attention to you. "Ready for that coffee?" he asked, leaning against my desk with a smile that made my stomach flutter. "Actually," I said, saving my work and grabbing my purse, "I was thinking maybe something stronger. There's a wine bar downtown." Callum raised an eyebrow. "What about your husband?" "Nathan won't even notice," I said, and realized how true that was. He's probably already got Joni fed and in bed by now. Very efficient, my husband. We ended up at a dimly lit bar where Callum listened to me talk about everything Nathan never asked about. My frustrations at work, my dreams of traveling, how invisible I felt most days. He asked questions, laughed at my jokes, and made me feel like the most interesting woman in the world. "You deserve better than being taken for granted," he said, his hand covering mine across the small table. "A woman like you should be cherished." I knew I should pull my hand away, should mention that he was married too, should think about Joni and Nathan and the life I'd built. Instead, I turned my palm up to meet his. When I got home at nearly 10 p.m., the house was quiet. Nathan's laptop was closed on the kitchen counter, and there was a plate covered with foil waiting for me in the refrigerator. Leftover spaghetti, Joni's favorite. I found Nathan in our bedroom, already in his pajamas, reading a technical manual. He looked up when I entered. "How was your project meeting?" he asked. The lie came so easily. "Productive. Sorry I'm so late." "No problem. Joni finished her homework and we played 2 games of Monopoly. She won both times." "That's nice," I said, heading to the bathroom to change. In the mirror, I could still see the flush in my cheeks from Callum's attention, the brightness in my eyes that had been missing for months. When I came back to bed, Nathan had set his book aside and turned off his lamp. I slipped under the covers, and for a moment, I thought he might turn toward me, might ask about my day or tell me he missed me. Instead, he said quietly, "Evadne? My mother called earlier. She's planning to visit next weekend." I suppressed a groan. Irene Marrow had never liked me, and the feeling was mutual. She thought Nathan had married beneath him, and she wasn't subtle about it. "Fine," I said. "I'll probably be busy with work anyway." Nathan was quiet for a long moment, then, "She asked if everything was okay between us. Said you seemed distant at Joni's birthday party." "Everything's fine," I said quickly. "Your mother just likes to create drama." "Maybe," Nathan said, but something in his tone suggested he didn't believe me. I lay awake long after his breathing evened out, staring at the ceiling and thinking about Callum's hand on mine, the way he'd looked at me like I was worth pursuing. Nathan hadn't touched me, really touched me, in months. We lived like roommates who happened to share a child and a mortgage. My phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. Another message from Callum. "Thank you for tonight. You're incredible, Evadne. Can't wait to see you again." I glanced at Nathan's still form and typed back, "Me too. This feels like the beginning of something amazing." As I hit send, I felt a thrill of rebellion mixed with guilt, but mostly, I felt alive for the first time in years. The next few weeks fell into a dangerous rhythm. Nathan would leave for work first, dropping Joni at school with military precision. I'd arrive at the office and find small gifts from Callum, a coffee with my name written in a heart, a chocolate bar left on my keyboard, a sticky note with a compliment that made me smile all morning. "You're glowing lately," my younger sister Sarah commented during one of our weekly phone calls. "New face cream?" "Something like that," I said, watching Callum across the office as he talked to a client. Even from a distance, he was magnetic. "How are things with Nathan?" Sarah asked, and I could hear the careful tone she used when she was fishing for information. "The same," I said honestly. "He works, I work, we take care of Joni. It's like being married to a very reliable robot." "Evadne." Sarah's voice carried a warning I didn't want to hear. "I have to go," I said quickly. "Big presentation today." The presentation was real, but it finished at 4 p.m. By 6:30, most of our colleagues had gone home, leaving the office in that quiet, after-hours atmosphere that had become familiar. Callum appeared at my desk with 2 cups of coffee and that smile that made my pulse quicken. "Thought you might need caffeine," he said, settling into the chair beside my desk. "You looked stressed during the Peterson meeting." "Peterson's impossible to please," I said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Sometimes I wonder why I even try." "Because you're ambitious," Callum said. "It's one of the things I admire about you. Nathan's lucky to have someone so driven." I made a face. "Nathan doesn't see it that way. He thinks my job is just something to keep me busy until Joni gets older." "Seriously?" Callum leaned closer, and I caught a hint of his cologne. "That's incredibly short-sighted of him." "Nathan's short-sighted about a lot of things," I said, and realized how disloyal that sounded, but it also felt good to say it out loud. "He's practical to a fault. Everything's about efficiency and logic with him. There's no passion. Callum's eyes held mine. Passion's important. Is it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Sometimes I think I imagine that it ever mattered. You didn't imagine it, Callum said softly. His hand moved to cover mine where it rested on my desk. Some people are just better at inspiring it than others. I should have pulled away. Should have mentioned that he was married too. Should have thought about Hector waiting for him at home, just like Nathan was waiting for me. Instead, I found myself saying, I feel like I'm disappearing in my own life. You're not disappearing, Callum said. You're just with the wrong person. The words hung in the air between us, dangerous and thrilling. I knew we'd crossed a line, but I couldn't bring myself to care. I should go home, I said, but I didn't move. Should you? Callum asked. Or should you come have dinner with me? Somewhere we can actually talk without interruption. I thought about Nathan at home, probably helping Joni with homework while dinner cooked itself in the slow cooker he'd programmed that morning. Efficient, practical Nathan, who would have everything handled and wouldn't even ask why I was late. Okay, I said, but somewhere discreet. Callum's smile was triumphant. I know just the place. The restaurant was small and intimate, tucked away in a part of town where we were unlikely to run into anyone we knew. Callum had reserved a corner booth, and as we settled in with wine and dim lighting, I felt like I was stepping into a different version of myself. Tell me something about yourself that Nathan doesn't know, Callum said, his fingers playing with the stem of his wine glass. I thought for a moment. I wanted to be a travel writer when I was younger. I had this whole plan to see the world and write about it. What happened? Reality, I said with a bitter laugh. I met Nathan in college, we got married, I got pregnant with Joni. Suddenly I was a suburban wife with a mortgage and responsibilities. Do you regret it? The question was dangerous, but the wine and Callum's attention made me honest. Sometimes. I love Joni more than anything, but I wonder what would have happened if I'd been braver. It's not too late to be brave, Callum said, and his hand found mine across the table again. This time, I didn't hesitate. I laced our fingers together and felt a thrill that had nothing to do with wine. What about Hector? I asked, finally acknowledging the elephant in the room. Callum's expression grew complicated. Hector's a good man, but we've grown apart. We're more like friends now than anything else. And Nathan? What about Nathan? Callum asked. From what you've told me, he's already checked out of your marriage. He just hasn't made it official. The words stung because they felt true. When was the last time Nathan had really seen me? Really talked to me about anything that mattered? I should feel guilty, I said. But you don't, Callum observed. No, I admitted. I feel alive. When we left the restaurant, Callum walked me to my car in the parking garage. The space was dimly lit and private, and when he pulled me close, I didn't resist. I've wanted to do this for weeks, he murmured against my ear, and then his lips were on mine. The kiss was everything Nathan's hadn't been in years, urgent, passionate, full of want. I melted into it, into him, feeling desired and beautiful and reckless. When we broke apart, I was breathless. This is crazy. The best things usually are, Callum said, his thumb tracing my cheek. I want to see you again. Soon. Yes, I said without hesitation. Yes. I drove home in a daze, my lips still tingling, my heart racing with the thrill of it all. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, and I slipped inside quietly. Nathan was asleep, or pretending to be when I entered our bedroom. I changed in the bathroom, studying my reflection in the mirror. I looked different, flushed, excited, guilty but not sorry. As I slipped into bed, Nathan stirred slightly. Everything okay? He mumbled, not turning over. Fine, I whispered, just tired. But I wasn't tired at all. I lay awake thinking about Callum's hands, his voice, the way he made me feel like I was worth pursuing. Nathan's steady breathing beside me felt like a reproach, but I pushed the guilt away. I deserved to feel wanted. I deserved passion. And if Nathan couldn't give me that, maybe it was time to find it elsewhere. My phone buzzed softly with a text from Callum. "Can't stop thinking about tonight. You're amazing, Evadne." I glanced at Nathan's still form and typed back, "I feel the same way. I want to see you tomorrow." As I hit send, I caught sight of something that made my blood freeze. A small red light on Nathan's laptop, which was sitting open on his dresser. The light that indicated the webcam was active, but Nathan was asleep. Wasn't he? I stared at the light for a long moment, my heart pounding. Then it went dark, and I convinced myself I'd imagined it. After all, Nathan was the most predictable man alive. If he suspected anything, he would have said something. He wasn't the type to play games or gather evidence. Was he? The anniversary dinner was Nathan's idea, which surprised me. He'd made reservations at Romano's, a mid-level Italian place we'd been to a few times before. Nothing fancy, but nice enough for our 8th wedding anniversary. "Should we invite some friends?" he'd asked a week earlier, looking up from his laptop. "Make it a celebration." I'd agreed, mostly because it meant less pressure to make conversation with just him. Our dinners alone had become exercises in polite small talk punctuated by long silences. Now, sitting at a table for 6 at Romano's, I was regretting the decision. Nathan had invited Tom and Jennifer Walsh, a couple from his work, and I'd asked Sarah to bring her boyfriend, Derek. The conversation was stilted, and Nathan seemed unusually quiet, even for him. 8 years, Jennifer said, raising her wine glass. "That's wonderful. You two are so lucky to have found each other." I forced a smile and clinked glasses, but the irony wasn't lost on me. Lucky. If only she knew that I'd spent the afternoon texting with Callum, planning our next secret meeting. "How did you two meet again?" Derek asked, cutting into his chicken parmesan. "College," Nathan said simply. "Philosophy class." Nathan was the serious one, I added, feeling the wine loosening my tongue. Always had his nose in a book. I had to work pretty hard to get his attention. "And now?" Sarah asked with a smile. "Still working hard to keep it?" The question hung in the air, and I felt everyone's eyes on me. Nathan was looking at his plate, methodically cutting his food into precise pieces. "Oh, these days I think Nathan's attention is pretty much guaranteed," I said with a laugh that sounded forced even to my ears. "I mean, where's he going to go, right?" There was an uncomfortable silence. Jennifer exchanged a glance with her husband. "That's not very romantic," Sarah said quietly. "Romance is overrated," I said, taking another sip of wine. "Stability is what matters, reliability. Nathan's very useful." The word hung there like a slap. Nathan's fork paused halfway to his mouth, and when he looked up, I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Not hurt, something colder. "Useful," he repeated quietly. "You know what I mean," I said quickly, realizing I'd crossed a line. "You're dependable, responsible, good with Joni." "Like a piece of furniture," Nathan said, his voice still quiet but carrying an edge that made everyone at the table shift uncomfortably. "Don't be dramatic," I said, forcing another laugh. "I just meant—" "You meant I'm useful," Nathan interrupted. "Not attractive, not interesting, not someone you'd choose if you had better options, just useful." The table was dead silent now. Derek was studying his wine glass like it held the secrets of the universe. Jennifer looked mortified. "Nathan, you're being ridiculous," I said, but my voice sounded shrill. "It was a joke." "Was it?" he asked, and there was something in his tone that made my skin crawl. "Because it didn't sound like a joke." "Of course it was," I insisted, looking around the table for support. "Right. I mean, we all joke about our spouses. It's normal." "Actually," Tom said carefully, "I think you might have hurt his feelings, Evadne." "Nathan doesn't get his feelings hurt," I said dismissively. "He's too logical for that. Aren't you, honey?" Nathan stood up abruptly, pulling his wallet from his pocket. He placed 2 50s on the table, more than enough to cover our portions of the meal. "Enjoy the rest of your evening," he said to the table. Then, looking directly at me, "I'll be at home with our daughter, being useful." He walked away without another word, leaving me sitting there with 4 pairs of eyes staring at me in various degrees of shock and disapproval. "Evadne," Sarah said quietly, "what the hell was that?" "He's being overly sensitive," I said, but my hands were shaking as I reached for my wine glass. "You know how men get about their egos." "That wasn't about ego," Jennifer said, her voice cold. "That was cruel." "I was just being honest," I protested. "Nathan and I don't have some fairy tale romance. We're practical about our marriage." "There's a difference between being practical and being mean," Derek said, speaking up for the first time. "That was mean, Evadne." I felt my face flush with anger and embarrassment. "You don't know what our marriage is like. You don't know what it's like to live with someone who treats you like a roommate." "So you humiliate him in public?" Sarah asked, her voice rising. "In front of his colleagues?" "I didn't," I started, but Tom was already standing. "We should go," he said to Jennifer. "This was uncomfortable." They left without saying goodbye to me, offering only awkward waves. Derek followed shortly after, mumbling something about an early morning. Sarah stayed, but her expression was thunderous. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded once we were alone. "Nothing's wrong with me," I said defensively. "I'm tired of pretending my marriage is something it's not." "So you're what? Publicly humiliating your husband instead, the father of your child?" "Nathan will get over it," I said, but even as I said it, I remembered the look in his eyes. That cold, calculating look that was so unlike him. "Will he?" Sarah asked. "Because if Derek ever said something like that about me in public, I'd be reconsidering a lot of things." "Nathan's not going anywhere," I said with more confidence than I felt. "He's too responsible, too committed to stability." "God, listen to yourself," Sarah said, standing up. "You just described your husband like he's a piece of furniture, and now you're banking on those same qualities to keep him around while you— What? What exactly are you doing, Evadne?" "I'm trying to find some happiness," I said quietly. Sarah stared at me for a long moment. "Are you having an affair?" The question hit like a physical blow. "That's none of your business." "Oh my God," Sarah breathed. "You are." "Evadne, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that I deserve to feel wanted," I said, my voice rising. "I deserve to feel alive." "Nathan stopped seeing me years ago." "So you decided to blow up your family instead of talking to him about it?" "There's nothing to talk about," I said. "Nathan is who he is. Practical, logical, boring. He's a good father and a reliable husband, but he's not passionate. He's not exciting. He's not hot," Sarah said flatly. "Just useful." The word sounded even worse coming from her. "You're twisting what I said." "I'm repeating what you said," Sarah corrected, "in front of his co-workers, on your anniversary." She grabbed her purse and stood up. "I love you, Evadne, but I can't support this. Whatever you're doing, whoever you're doing it with, you need to stop before you destroy everything." "You don't understand," I started. "I understand that you just humiliated a good man who loves you and works hard for your family," Sarah said. "And I understand that you don't seem to care." She left me sitting alone at the table, surrounded by the debris of our anniversary dinner. I finished my wine and ordered another, trying to process what had just happened. My phone buzzed with a text from Callum. "How's the anniversary dinner? Thinking of you." I typed back, "Terrible. Nathan's being dramatic about nothing. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." But as I sat there alone, I couldn't shake the image of Nathan's face when I'd called him useful. There had been something different in his expression, something that suggested the quiet, predictable man I'd married might not be as simple as I thought. When I finally got home, the house was dark except for a light in Nathan's study. I found him there, sitting at his computer, typing steadily. "Working late?" I asked from the doorway. He didn't look up. "Something like that." Nathan, about dinner. Don't, he said quietly. Just don't. You're being ridiculous, I said. It was a joke between married people. Everyone makes jokes about their spouses. Nathan finally looked at me, and that cold expression was back. Do they, Evadne? Do they really? Something in his tone made me nervous, but I pushed the feeling away. This was Nathan, predictable, reliable Nathan who would never actually do anything dramatic. I'm going to bed, I said. Good night, he said, turning back to his computer. As I walked upstairs, I could hear him typing again, steady and methodical, like everything else he did. I had no idea that he was documenting everything. The next Monday at work, I could feel the change immediately. Conversation stopped when I walked by. People who usually smiled and said good morning suddenly found their computer screens fascinating. By lunch, it was clear that word of the anniversary dinner had spread. Evadne, my supervisor, Patricia, called me into her office around 2 p.m. Can we talk? I sat down across from her desk, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. Patricia was in her 50s, no nonsense, and had always seemed to like me. I heard there was some drama at a restaurant this weekend, she said without preamble. Something involving you and your husband. My stomach dropped. I don't see how my personal life is relevant to work. It becomes relevant when it involves a colleague, Patricia said. Tom Walsh is a good friend of mine. He was pretty disturbed by what he witnessed. It was a private conversation between spouses, I said defensively. In a public restaurant, in front of his co-workers, Patricia corrected. Evadne, I'm going to be direct with you. There are rumors circulating about your relationship with Callum Pike. Combined with what happened this weekend, it's creating a very uncomfortable environment. I felt my face flush. I don't know what rumors you're referring to. Patricia leaned back in her chair. The late nights, the coffee dates, the way you two look at each other. People aren't blind, Evadne. Callum and I are colleagues, I said stiffly. We work well together. I'm sure you do, Patricia said dryly, but I need you to understand that this situation is affecting team morale. People are uncomfortable, and frankly, after what Tom told me about Saturday night, they're starting to question your judgment. My judgment? A woman who would publicly humiliate her husband raises questions about her character, Patricia said bluntly, and her decision-making abilities. I felt like I'd been slapped. That's completely unfair. Maybe, Patricia said, but fair or not, it's reality. I suggest you think carefully about your priorities, both personal and professional. I left her office feeling like everyone was watching me, judging me. At my desk, I found a note from Callum. Can't meet tonight. Hector is suspicious. Need to be careful. For the first time since this all started, I felt truly alone. At home that evening, things were even worse. Nathan was in the kitchen when I arrived, helping Joni with homework at the kitchen table. They both looked up when I walked in, but while Joni smiled, Nathan's expression was carefully neutral. How was school, baby? I asked, kissing the top of Joni's head. Good, she said, but her voice was subdued. Daddy, can you help me with this math problem? I noticed she directed the question to Nathan, not me. Usually, she asked both of us for help. Joni, why don't you go wash up for dinner? Nathan said. I need to talk to Mommy. Once Joni was gone, Nathan turned to me with that same cold expression he'd worn at the restaurant. My mother called today, he said. My heart sank. Irene Marrow calling was never good news, but especially not now. What did she want? She heard about Saturday night, Nathan said. Tom's wife is in her book club. Of course she is, I muttered. She wanted to know if our marriage was in trouble, Nathan continued. I told her I'd have to get back to her on that. Nathan, are we, Evadne? He asked. In trouble? The question hung between us, loaded with implications I wasn't ready to face. Every marriage has rough patches, I said carefully. Rough patches, Nathan repeated. Is that what you call publicly humiliating me? You're never going to let that go, are you? Should I? Nathan asked. Should I just accept that my wife thinks I'm useful but not attractive, that she's embarrassed to be married to me? I never said I was embarrassed. You didn't have to, Nathan interrupted. It was written all over your face. Joni appeared in the doorway, looking uncertain. Are you guys fighting? No, sweetheart, I said quickly. We're just talking. But Joni wasn't stupid. She could feel the tension, and I saw her move closer to Nathan's side of the kitchen. Why don't we have dinner? Nathan said, his voice gentling for our daughter. We can talk more later. Dinner was awkward, with Joni chattering nervously to fill the silence between Nathan and me. Afterward, Nathan took her upstairs for bath time while I cleaned the kitchen, and I could hear them laughing together from the bathroom. When had Joni stopped laughing with me like that? Later that night, after Joni was in bed, I found Nathan in his study again. He was on his laptop, but he closed it when I entered. We need to talk, I said. Do we? Nathan asked. Because I'm not sure you have anything to say that I want to hear. That's not fair. Fair? Nathan's voice was sharp. You want to talk about fair, Evadne? Is it fair that I found out my wife thinks I'm boring and unattractive from her public announcement at a restaurant? Is it fair that my colleagues are looking at me with pity? Is it fair that my daughter is asking me why Mommy seems angry all the time? Joni said that. She's 7, not stupid, Nathan said. She can feel the tension in this house. I felt a stab of guilt but pushed it away. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, there wouldn't be any tension. Pay attention to you? Nathan's laugh was bitter. Evadne, I've been paying attention, more than you know. Something in his tone made me nervous. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not as oblivious as you think I am, Nathan said. I know about the late nights, the secret phone calls, the way you light up when you get certain text messages. My blood turned cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Nathan asked. Because I think you do. We stared at each other across the room, and I felt like I was seeing my husband clearly for the first time in years. This wasn't the passive, predictable man I'd married. This was someone calculating, someone who'd been watching and waiting. Nathan, I think you should sleep in the guest room tonight, he said quietly. I need some space to think. You can't kick me out of our bedroom. I'm not kicking you out, Nathan said. I'm asking you to give me some space, unless you'd prefer to tell me the truth about what's really going on. I opened my mouth to deny everything, but something in his eyes stopped me. He knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Fine, I said. I'll sleep in the guest room. As I gathered my things, I caught sight of Nathan's laptop screen before he closed it completely. It looked like some kind of file directory, with folders labeled by date. What are you working on? I asked. Just organizing some files, Nathan said. You know me. I like to keep things orderly. But as I left the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that Nathan was organizing more than just computer files. He was organizing evidence. The next few weeks passed in a blur of increasing paranoia and isolation. At work, Callum had become distant, claiming that Hector was asking too many questions about his late nights. Our stolen moments became fewer and more rushed, and I found myself checking my phone obsessively for messages that came less and less frequently. At home, Nathan had become a ghost. He was polite but cold, handling all interactions through Joni or practical necessities. He'd changed all the passwords on our shared accounts, the bank, the utilities, even our Netflix account. When I confronted him about it, he simply said he was updating security protocols. You can't lock me out of our own accounts, I protested. I'm not locking you out, Nathan said calmly. I'm securing our information. If you need access to something, just ask. But asking meant admitting I didn't know what was happening in my own financial life, and I wasn't ready to give him that satisfaction. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening when I arrived home to find Joni's overnight bag packed by the front door. Where is she going? I asked Nathan, who was in the kitchen making what looked like a single serving of dinner. To my mother's for the weekend, Nathan said without looking up. They're going to the zoo on Saturday. You didn't ask me. I don't need to ask you, Nathan said. She's my daughter too. What's that supposed to mean? Nathan finally looked at me, and his expression was carefully neutral. It means I can make plans with my daughter without consulting you, just like you make plans without consulting me. The implication hung in the air like a threat. I don't know what you think you know. I know enough, Nathan interrupted. I know you've been working late every Tuesday and Thursday for 2 months. I know you've been getting text messages at all hours. I know you come home smelling like wine and cologne that isn't mine. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay calm. You're being paranoid. Am I? Nathan pulled his phone from his pocket and showed me the screen. It was a photo of me and Callum at the wine bar, clearly taken from outside through the window. We were holding hands across the table, leaning toward each other intimately. I felt the blood drain from my face. Where did you get that? Does it matter? Nathan asked, putting the phone away. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Nathan, I can explain. Can you? He asked. Can you explain why you're having an affair? Can you explain why you humiliated me in front of my colleagues? Can you explain why you've been lying to me for months? Johnny appeared at the top of the stairs, her backpack over her shoulder. Daddy, I'm ready to go to Grandma's. Coming, sweetheart, Nathan called, his voice immediately warming. Then, to me, we'll finish this conversation when I get back. But when he returned an hour later, I was ready for him. You had me followed, I accused the moment he walked through the door. I didn't have you followed, Nathan said. I followed you myself. Last Tuesday, when you said you were working late but your office building was dark. You're spying on me? I'm protecting myself, Nathan corrected, and protecting Johnny. From what? From the fallout when this all comes crashing down, Nathan said. Because it will, Evadne. Affairs always do. I felt a surge of anger. You want to know the truth? Fine. Yes, I'm seeing someone. Yes, I've been unhappy in our marriage. And yes, I meant what I said at the restaurant. You are useful, Nathan, but you're not exciting. You're not passionate. You're not the kind of man who makes a woman feel alive. Nathan absorbed this like he was taking notes. Thank you for being honest. That's it? I demanded. That's all you have to say? What would you like me to say? Nathan asked. That I'm heartbroken, that I'm surprised, that I'll fight for our marriage? Something, I exploded. Anything. Show some emotion, for God's sake. You want emotion? Nathan asked, and for the first time, I heard something crack in his voice. You want me to break down, beg you to stay, promise to be more exciting. I want you to care. I do care, Nathan said quietly. I care enough to make sure Johnny doesn't get hurt more than necessary. I care enough to protect our assets from your poor decision-making. I care enough to document everything so that when this ends, and it will end, I'm not the one left with nothing. The words hit like ice water. What are you saying? I'm saying that if you want out of this marriage, I won't stop you, Nathan said. But I won't make it easy for you either, not when there's a child involved. You can't take Johnny from me. I don't want to take Johnny from you, Nathan said, but I will protect her from the chaos you're creating, and I will make sure that if our marriage ends, it ends on fair terms. Fair terms. Nathan pulled a folder from his briefcase and set it on the kitchen counter. Financial records, phone logs, photos, documentation of your affair, your public humiliation of me, and the impact it's having on our daughter. I stared at the folder like it was a snake. You've been building a case against me. I've been protecting myself, Nathan corrected. You made your choice, Evadne. Now you get to live with the consequences. My phone buzzed with a text from Callum. Can't do this anymore. Hector knows. It's over. The timing was almost cosmic in its cruelty. What happens now? I asked. Now you decide what you want, Nathan said. Do you want to end the affair and try to save our marriage? Or do you want to continue down this path and see where it leads? And if I choose the affair? Nathan's smile was cold. Then you'll discover just how useful I can be when I'm working against you instead of for you. As he walked upstairs, leaving me alone with the folder of evidence and Callum's breakup text, I realized that I'd completely misjudged my husband. Nathan wasn't passive. He wasn't predictable. He was strategic, and I was about to find out just how strategic he could be. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday morning, delivered not to the house but to my car as I sat in the parking lot of a coffee shop, trying to work up the courage to go inside and face another day of whispered conversations and pitying looks. The process server was professional and efficient. She tapped on my window, asked for my name, and handed me a thick manila envelope through the barely opened window. "You've been served," she said not unkindly. "Have a good day." I sat in my car, staring at the envelope for a long time before opening it. When I finally did, the contents made my blood run cold. Nathan hadn't just filed for divorce. He'd filed for full custody of Johnny, citing my affair, my emotional instability, and my pattern of deceptive behavior as evidence that I was an unfit mother. Attached were printed copies of my text messages with Callum, photos of us together, and a detailed timeline of my lies and late nights. But the most devastating piece of evidence was a recording. Nathan had somehow captured our conversation at the anniversary dinner, including my comment about him being useful and my dismissive laughter when Sarah called me cruel. There was also a statement from Johnny's teacher, noting that our daughter had become withdrawn and anxious in recent months, often asking to call her father during school hours. My hand shook as I read through the papers. Nathan had been thorough, methodical, and absolutely devastating in his documentation. Every lie I'd told, every excuse I'd made, every cruel comment was laid out in stark black and white. I drove home in a daze, but when I pulled into our driveway, I couldn't get inside. The locks had been changed. A note was taped to the front door. "Evadne, your belongings are in the garage. The house is under court protection pending custody determination. Please direct all communication through my attorney. Nathan." I called him immediately, but my calls went straight to voicemail. I tried texting, but the messages showed as undelivered. He'd blocked me completely. In desperation, I called Sarah, but she didn't answer either. When I tried Irene, Nathan's mother, she picked up on the first ring. "What do you want, Evadne?" Her voice was ice cold. "I need to talk to Nathan. I need to see Joni." "Nathan is protecting himself and his daughter," Irene said, "as he should have done months ago." "She's my daughter too." "Is she?" Irene asked. "Because from what I understand, you've been too busy with your boyfriend to pay much attention to her." The line went dead. I sat in my car outside what used to be my home, surrounded by boxes of my belongings, reading through the divorce papers again and again. Nathan's lawyer had been thorough. They were seeking full custody, spousal support termination, and division of assets that heavily favored Nathan due to my marital misconduct. The most crushing blow was a handwritten note from Joni, included in my personal effects. "Mommy, Daddy says you need some time to think about what you want. I hope you want us. Love, Joni." The drawing that accompanied it showed 3 stick figures, Nathan, Joni, and a third figure standing far away from the other 2. The distant figure had tears drawn on its face. My phone rang. For a moment I hoped it was Nathan, but it was Callum. "Evadne, I heard about the divorce," he said, his voice strained. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry enough to leave Hector?" I asked desperately. "Sorry enough to be with me now that I'm free?" There was a long silence. "Evadne, Hector and I are going to counseling. We're trying to work things out." "What about us? What about everything you said about passion and being with the wrong person?" "I was wrong," Callum said quietly. "I was selfish and wrong, and I'm sorry I dragged you into this." "You didn't drag me," I said, but even as I said it, I knew it sounded pathetic. "I chose this." "We both made mistakes," Callum said. but I can't be what you need right now. I'm sorry. He hung up, leaving me alone in my car with boxes and a court order that detailed my ruin. Lawyers agreed. Nathan's case was airtight. My affair, public humiliation, and neglect of Joni had sealed my fate. Negotiate, one said. Nathan offered supervised visitation twice a week and a pittance settlement. At the hearing, I begged the judge. I love my daughter. She asked why she should trust me unsupervised. I had no answer. I'd chosen desire over family. Nathan won primary custody. I got supervised visits every other weekend, child support, and mandatory counseling. As he walked away, he said, "You showed me I was disposable." I slept in my car, clutching Joni's drawing, realizing I'd underestimated the useful man who'd protected our daughter by destroying me.